So much PC hardware news happened last week. Let's go. We've got NVIDIA to host CES 2024 special address on January 8th. And I don't think it's officially stated, but at this point, we're going to be pretty surprised if that's not the reveal for the RTX 40 Super GPUs that we have been seeing so many rumored specs about. And that's really the time frame that made the most sense. And now that we see a NVIDIA keynote, special address happening there, that makes a lot of sense. Now, we have some other rumors and leaks kind of pointing towards the 40 series Super definitely actually happening. We're seeing one Korean seller confirmed RTX 40 Super, but he only confirmed 4070 Super and 4080 Super just for naming, didn't give any details. That's from Harukaze5719, who has leaked some things accurately in the past. If you follow the GPU leaking space, we see NVIDIA's GeForce RTX 4070 Ti Super packaging design leak hints it might be real. By the way, all my sources will be linked in today's video description, as usual. And this is basically seeing the box design for a 4070 Ti Super. Now, this is the one that, according to this one, we said, okay, 4070 Super and 4080 Super, but there is this 4070 Ti Super that we see rumored, and that would be such a weird naming scheme to throw a Super onto the 4070 Ti. But hey, this is apparently the box art. This is coming from Mega Size GPU, who has leaked this type of information accurately in the past. Now, again, just because designs are being thrown around doesn't mean they will actually end up releasing, but it does look like this is being, seriously considered if we are getting the box art design out on that one. Now, what would we actually expect from any of this? Well, the rumors have not been fully consistent with each other, which in my opinion points to NVIDIA could still be bouncing around ideas. At some point, they do need to finalize them. But until they get finalized, that's why you could see different rumors stating different possibilities. According to this WCCF Tech article rounding up some of the latest rumors, we would see a 4080 Super be about 3 to 5% faster on average versus the 4080 if it does just get these small amount of core bump that we were seeing in some of the latest rumors, which would be, I think, it's staying on the same die and just fully utilizing it. The 4070 Ti Super versus the 4070 Ti, though, could be up to 15% faster and go up to 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which would be quite nice to see. But then, and then the 4070 Super versus the 4070 could again be a 14% bump. Now, is this all gonna for sure happen or anything like that? Again, I still think this stuff could be being played around behind the scenes, and it could be unclear which, if any of these actually end up taking place. This is that WCCF Tech article's kind of chart on this stuff, but they're putting, I think the biggest question mark is price points, right? Because they're throwing in some placeholder values, does the 4080 Super come in at the same price as the 4080? If it's not much faster, I think that might be a bit of a disappointment. Unless it maybe then just justifies a lower price tag on the actual 4080. These sell for about $1,050 these days. I've seen one as low as $1,000. If they were pushed down to $1,000 or less, for an actual standard price, that would at least be somewhat interesting. Again, rumored specs here and all that, 4070 Ti Super, if it actually did come in with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, it would be solving one of the biggest problems the 4070 Ti has. And then, because spending, $800-ish for a 12 gigabyte card feels pretty bad. If you had 16 and it was a bit faster, that would certainly feel a lot nicer. But I don't know. We'll have to see what comes out of any of this. And, the biggest thing though would it push the pricing down on the current generation products, the non-supers? That could be interesting. Now, this expired very quickly, but for a little while, Asus had their ProArt RTX 4070 Ti listed on Amazon for as low as $689. And again, these cards came out at $800. The 4070 Ti was $800 MSRP, and now can usually be found a little below that, but not a lot below that. So it would be cool if pricing like this started forcing those cards down. We'll have to see what happens. I don't know what we'll see if for Black Friday or anything like that. We'll have to find out. In other NVIDIA news, we did see GeForce Experience finally get a major update to 3.27, adding RTX 40 laptop GPU support and HDR fix for shadow play. So when you're recording through the GeForce Experience, recording your gameplay, the HDR looked kind of washed out. This should be fixing that. So while NVIDIA updates their actual drivers pretty frequently, updates to their GeForce Experience software have been a lot slower, so this is certainly welcome. Now, here's what I was most excited about this week. I want a Steam Deck OLED so badly. My biggest complaint with the Steam Deck is the screen, and the OLED screen should just solve that problem. And this will also have the added benefit of forcing down some pricing on the LCD models, which is pretty cool. Now, I think some people were kind of blindsided by this statement because Valve had been very clear to say that they were not going to be launching a Steam Deck 2.0 for a few more years. And they had stated that earlier this year. So I think that surprised people, but this is, more of a refresh, not a 2.0. The key is that they are clear that the technology, they don't feel like the next APU is powerful enough to justify an actual next generation of Steam Deck. So while this one will get a lot of, minor bumps, and because its memory is faster, there may be a tiny performance benefit. They're really trying to set a hardware baseline from a performance perspective. But again, that doesn't mean we can't get all of these nice revisions to the, the screen, the battery life, all of that. I found this interesting. Valve was asked, are they working on some games that are specifically designed for the Steam Deck? And the answer is yes, although don't expect them to be launching with the OLED model, which is certainly interesting. Now, if we want to kind of get a summary of how the Steam Deck OLED version specs-wise performs versus the original Steam Deck and some of its most recent competition, like the Asus ROG Ally and Lenovo Legion Go, you can see how, one of the biggest things here is the display, because while we're not bumping up the resolution, I think that's actually a good thing. If it was a higher resolution display, the games, honestly, the Steam Deck does, if you're trying to play, 3D games of any, recent graphical demand, it can feel a bit underpowered. It's still really cool that it can do something, even make a lot of those games playable at all. But adding more resolution to the screen just makes it even harder to run those games. But jumping up to 90 hertz, so when you're playing a less demanding game, you can get that increased fluidity, especially in 2D games and things like that. So sure, the ROG Ally still goes up to 120 hertz, and the ROG Ally still has variable refresh rate on the screen. I think that's the biggest thing that's disappointing on this OLED update. Is it would have been really cool if it had variable refresh rate support. But other than that, it pretty much hit every single box I would want it to hit, other than just more powerful hardware, which again, Valve claims just really isn't out there yet. Yes, the ROG Ally and the Lenovo Legion Go do have a more powerful APU, but it's not enough of a generational jump at the same power targets to, I think for Valve to feel like it's worth doing, because then you break the baseline compatibility layer that you're trying to set for people who want to make their games Steam Deck compatible. Again, we're getting a bigger battery life, a slightly faster memory, which could give us a little bit of a performance bump, and some early tests were showing some of that. Just overall, this thing looks awesome. I really, faster internet connection, basically every little issue I had with my Steam Deck, other than just its raw power, getting resolved, and so I'll definitely be looking to get one of these. Now, in other, related news, what about, Steam Deck competitor type devices? How about Ayaneo announcing its Nintendo DS-inspired Flip DS handheld, a Macintosh and NES-inspired retro mini PCs. So this looks pretty interesting. So we're getting one that's like this, the clamshell kind of design with a full keyboard underneath. But then you're also getting this one that actually has that screen there, similar to a Nintendo DS. But then you're also getting these Apple Macintosh, designed thing. I don't think that's an actual screen on this one, but I think the NES-inspired one that actually can be a clock and other things and is an actual screen. So certainly some kind of interesting devices coming out here just to differentiate themselves from the competition. Now, but okay, in the terms of the handheld gaming devices, though, Apple seems to be making a play. Because, getting games like Resident Evil Village up and running on an iPhone 15 Pro, right? Stick some controllers on that thing, how does it do? Well, Digital Foundry did an excellent video looking at Resident Evil performance on the iPhone 15 Pro. They also take a look at the iPad Pro M1 a little bit here as well and show it up against the Steam Deck. And it is looking like the Steam Deck is definitely outperforming the iPhone 15 Pro. So while the iPhone 15 does have, 3nm silicon, and the M1 can be, not just the M1, but the newer M chip in the iPhone 15 Pro, and looking at the older iPad, they are also constrained by, limited RAM, as well as just their extremely low power devices. The iPhone 15 Pro is kind of constrained to an extremely low wattage and cooling system, and, there's whatever sort of translation is happening for this version of the game. So it's cool that it's getting up and running, but it does look like in terms of raw power, the Steam Deck is offering the better experience than the iPhone 15 Pro in this game that we can do. And again, that's even 900p native versus 1080p native here, and still with the performance benefit for the Steam Deck, even running at the higher resolution. So, like I said, though, it can't. Part of the issue there is the 8 gigabytes of RAM. At certain settings, the game just crashes, and Apple is still releasing 8 gigabytes of RAM on some of their actual MacBooks for their M3s, and it's showing up in a lot of testing right now that is causing some major performance issues on the 8 gigabyte version versus the 16 gigabyte version. And I still it's crazy to me how stingy Apple can be with their RAM when, memory prices have been incredibly low. Although on that note, we are seeing an article saying that NAND memory for SSDs to see up to 20% hike from Samsung and others. I think this is like TrendForce prediction or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll have to see what comes of that. Man, SSD prices have been so low recently. I think people should probably be jumping on those in case they go back up. If you haven't upgraded your storage recently, I think now is a pretty good time to do it. In other interesting testing that Digital Foundry did recently, and also related to the handheld gaming PC space, they were trying to take a look at what kind of performance could you expect from a Switch 2, from its hardware level that's been rumored. And again, all my sources will be in the video description, and I thought this was really interesting to look at. So it's rumored that NVIDIA's T239 processor will be the hardware in the Switch 2. And so at Digital Foundry, they took a look at what is the consumer hardware you can actually buy now that is closest in spec and architecture to that processor. And they found an RTX 2050 4 gigabyte and limited its speeds down to 750 megahertz. Now, this is still not an exact match, but it can give some kind of a rough ballpark idea of what a Switch 2 could do. And here you're seeing it run Control with RT reflections enabled, with a 1080p output at DLSS balanced. And it was able to hold 30 FPS in much of the game. I'm showing a screenshot here where more demanding areas can dip a bit. But so can a lot of, actual Switch games will dip below 30 FPS at times. But it does look like it could offer some pretty compelling performance. And again, there's tons of games and things tested here. A lot of details on the hardware and things like that that's expected. So really cool video. I'd recommend taking a look at that. But let's jump into some AMD news. So we've got Gigabyte confirming the launch of AMD's next-gen desktop APU, which we would expect to be called Ryzen 8000G, because these would be expected to be coming next year, end of January. So with AMD's new naming scheme, it seems like the year, I believe, determines the number at the front, not the architecture generation. So if these are a 2024 product, I believe they would be 8000 series, and then the G at the end should still indicate that they have that it's the graphics-focused mobile APU. Currently, the 7000 series processors do have an integrated GPU, but with only 2 cores. It's really not designed for any sort of gaming or graphics-intensive work. It's just nice to get some actual display output and things like that from the processor itself, to have that ability at all. Now, this is coming from Gigabyte. This is a videocards.com article where I'm grabbing the quote, but Gigabyte is saying, Gigabyte Technology Company Limited, a leading manufacturer of motherboards, graphics cards, and hardware solutions, released the latest AGESA 1.1.0.0 beta BIOS for AM5 next-gen APU support. And that's the big thing right there. Next-gen APU support on X670, B650, and A620 motherboards. The forthcoming AM5 next-gen APU will be launched at the end of January 2024. So, I mean, that seems pretty clear, although it seems like maybe Gigabyte was not supposed to say that yet at this point. But there it is. I'll be interested to see what we get. Videocards.com summarizes what we would probably be expecting from these in terms of cores, threads, and graphics. So if we did get a 12CU RDNA 3 chip here, that could be similar to what we've been seeing in a lot of mobile chips, see them in a lot of mini PCs and things like that, with 12 CUs of RDNA 3. But in a desktop form factor, and maybe we could feed a lot of power at it, that kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see. Now, other big AMD news is that they are announcing a new game bundle now that Starfield's run its course. They're announcing Avatar Frontiers of Pandora game bundles for Ryzen 7000 CPUs and Radeon 7000 GPUs. So it looks like the specific models are listed up here if you are interested. But yeah, it looks like you're hitting most of your, I think pretty much the whole 7000 series of both the CPU and GPU. Are we not getting the lower end CPUs? Trying to look around here. No, it looks like we're only going down to the Ryzen 7 7800X3D. Do you guys see any Ryzen? And then we got the higher end mobiles. It looks like we're not seeing the, like your Ryzen 7600 or anything like that on the list, at least as far as I'm seeing it. It looks like on the mobile end, you would have to include both. Anyway, interesting stuff. We'll have to see what comes of that. In other AMD news, AMD has put out a press release showing off their Modern Warfare 3 performance versus their NVIDIA counterparts. Now, so to be clear, this is not my slide. This is AMD marketing slide. However, while I haven't tested this myself yet, this does line up to Modern Warfare 2 performance, and it's using the same engine. Basically, AMD GPUs do seem to outperform their NVIDIA counterparts in Modern Warfare 2, so it would stand to reason that they would continue to do so in Modern Warfare 3. And with that game just launching, AMD is claiming that superiority here. And yeah, there you go. In other AMD news, we do see a new preview driver for their fluid motion frames. So to be clear, this particular update doesn't seem to have done a huge amount. And also, once again, every time I talk about this, I need to clarify, this is not FSR3. So people seem to be confusing and conflating FSR3 with fluid motion frames, which are through the driver level and are not officially released yet. So a while back when FSR3 launched, we also got a preview driver which enabled frame generation through the driver. But because it does not get information from the game itself, like motion vectors, its quality is worse. And it kind of gives up and sort of shuts itself off if there's too much difference between any two frames. So, it was of limited usefulness when I tested it out. I couldn't find a game where I felt like it was actually better when using it. People in my comment section seem to be finding games where they're happy with it, though. They originally limited it to the 7000 series GPUs. And again, this is a preview driver that you download to get access to this feature. It was originally limited to the 7000 series, but on October 6th, they opened it up to the 6000 series. And that's the last time I tested it. On October 13th, there was an additional update, which did include support for HDR, which was one of the issues I had with it originally. And they did claim some improvements to frame pacing, which might actually be a serious thing. I have not tested this October 13th update yet, so maybe it's improved a bit since the last time I took a look at it, and now we're getting a November 9th update, which should be improvements to driver stability during task switching and resolving some cases of intermittent crashing or failing to display metrics. So this looks like more of a stability update rather than more like frame pacing update or major feature updates. But anyway, it looks like AMD is continuing to offer improvements to this preview driver. So hopefully by the time we actually get it out there, maybe it will be in a state where it could be more useful than what I saw in my initial testing. And again, some people in my comment section seem happier with it than I was in my testing, so awesome. Anyway, we're also seeing in other AMD driver news confirmation, there we go, that Polaris and Vega architectures will only receive critical updates going forward. So on those older graphics cards, you are now going to be just getting the most crucial of critical driver updates, and basically we're kind of phasing those out at this point, it looks like. Now, in other AMD GPU news, the Radeon RX 7900 GRE, which was originally a China-exclusive launch in the DIY market, but opened a bit wider than that for system integrators in pre-built systems, did eventually find its way to market in certain European areas. And now we're looking at the price dropping in those areas. So now it is down to 617 euros. 15% pricier than the 7800 XT with 33% more cores. So kind of interesting at least. I'm wondering if these GRE models will eventually see more, I don't know, see more worldwide availability. And you know, if they are price competitive with the rest of the stack, that could be pretty interesting. In my last bit of AMD news here, I'm seeing a headline that AMD could be utilizing Samsung 4nm and TSMC 3nm nodes for next-gen chips, and Zen 5C could possibly be codenamed Prometheus. It would be interesting if AMD did utilize any Samsung node, because they've been on TSMC here. And AMD has been mixing, different sizing nodes on their chiplet designs for cost-saving reasons. So I don't know, could be interesting. This seems to be a variety of things kind of pulled from LinkedIn posts and things like that, showing like what people have been working on and stuff like that. So I don't know what to make of it, but hey, there it is. Now let's switch over to some Intel news. So Intel sets the stage for Vision 2024 event slated in April for 2024. Now, at this point, it's unclear if there would be any major product announcement here. I mean, a lot of us would be very interested to see what's coming with Battle Mage and any kind of major things like that. This article from Video Cards is saying Intel Vision differs from the usual product launch events. It is not meant to provide major updates to roadmaps either. Rather, it provides attendees with the chance to interact with Intel executives in person. So, I don't know. Anyway, based on that, I don't know a lot about this myself, but maybe this wouldn't be the kind of place that we'd see a Battle Mage announcement or anything. I don't know. In other Intel news, we are seeing Intel's Core i9 14900K S version showing off 6.2 gigahertz as a special edition CPU. So while the 14900K basically seemed like a slightly overclocked 13900K, apparently there will be an even more slightly overclocked KS bin version out there. Anyway, so there is that. This appears to be product listings showing 14900KS in the listings where this news is coming from. And in other Intel news, we're seeing that Intel's downfall CPU vulnerability issue, which there were headlines about a while ago, is apparently leading to class action lawsuit by consumers, apparently claiming that, you know what, let me get the quote right, because legal stuff, is kind of confusing. So the complaint says that in the summer of 2018, when Intel was dealing with the Spectre and Meltdown issues, the manufacturer received 2 separate vulnerability reports from third-party researchers that warned that the microprocessor Titan's Advanced Vector Extensions, AVX instruction set, which allows Intel CPU cores to perform operations on multiple pieces of data simultaneously, improving performance, was vulnerable to the same class of side-channel attack as those other 2 serious flaws. But then they basically say that while being aware of this, Intel chose to not do anything about it, basically. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see if anything comes of that. Let's go ahead and move on to some GPU cooler design news. So Galax introduces a $2,880 RTX 4090 20th anniversary carbon fiber edition, which is limited to 50 units worldwide. Looks like a couple of design choices available on that. Anyway, we're also seeing Galax unveiling a single-slot GeForce RTX 4060 Ti Max GPU. This is the 16GB 4060 Ti variant. And when the 16GB 4060 Ti initially came out, my first thought was, wow, this sounds interesting from a productivity standpoint for somebody who needs NVIDIA's CUDA but doesn't want to pay for an RTX 4080 because certain applications just require 16 gigabytes of VRAM. And also, you would sometimes want to do like multi-GPU configurations. So with a single slot design, could you now slot a whole bunch of these into some kind of a workstation? NVIDIA seems to try to limit this type of thing on the consumer gaming GPU lineup so as to not compete with their forgetting their productivity-focused designs. I forget the word. It's just totally slipping my mind what the lineup's called, but whatever. You get the idea. Anyway, Zephyr unveils its mini ITX GeForce RTX 4060 Ti GPU. No pink PCB this time. So a mini ITX form factor 4060 Ti could be an interesting way to slot in a good amount of performance into a very small form factor, and with a very unique design on it. They had a 3060 Ti design similar to this, which apparently did have an actual pink PCB, but this one doesn't have the pink PCB. But there you go, interesting looking design there. And the last thing I've got is Colorful officially launching 4060 Ti iGame Ultra, which I believe has the hidden, this is the one with the hidden power connectors over here, where you get the back plate goes over the top and covers up the power cables. And I think that rounds up last week's PC hardware news, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.